Hi, and welcome to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations. It's January 25th, 2013, and it's a beautiful winter's day here at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Today we're going to be talking to Tyler Heel and Frazer, two engineering students here at the university. They are currently in the process of putting together the second annual Engineering Art Show. It's a show that's going to display the works of engineering students, practicing engineers, and even retired engineers. The show was called Traces, and it's going to be occurring here at the university during the month of March. I should mention before we get underway that Travis Nyden is also involved in putting the show together, but due to prior commitments was not able to join us today. So, welcome to Conversations, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Terry. Thanks so much.
So, Tyler, let's start out with you telling us how three very busy engineering students came up with this crazy idea of putting together an art show for engineers.
Yeah, so I guess we ran the first show last year, and we'd begun planning for it actually about a year ago from now, so we've got a pretty good jump on logistics now. And I guess it had kind of just come out of some time we spent thinking over Christmas, just kind of a whole bunch of different ideas floating around, and they just kind of came together that there's a lot of people within engineering that do have this very artistic side, and quite often I guess you get pigeonholed into the stereotype of being very technical, but in fact, when you're out practicing in the profession, it's that creative and that innovative side that really is an integral part of the work. So I think a lot of people are looking for this outlet to be able to showcase and kind of celebrate their work. So I guess the original thrust was to kind of create this community that celebrated engineering art and really created a space for it. And that was the theme of last year's show, was spaces. So creating both a physical space but also a community to kind of begin to foster some of this art.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a cool idea to give engineers this platform to show their creative side, because in reality, I think most people don't necessarily think of engineers as being very creative. You know, I was an engineer myself, and the experience I had during my practice was the fact that being an engineer, what you're doing is you're coming up with solutions for problems.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you actually have to be creative.
Oh, so creative. Even to start with like a little anecdote from last year's show, because we had the displays in very high traffic locations in engineering buildings, and people would stop and look at them. So we overheard a few conversations. And I remember one, there was two friends standing there and was looking at them like, you know what, I really miss art and having it around in my everyday life. Like, some of these things are really cool. I mean, I won't stop making fun of art students or anything, but this is really cool.
No, that's great.
Yeah, so I guess in the future years with the shows, we started out with kind of creating this community, and I think this year we've got some really strong submissions coming in, so we're starting to see that community forming and becoming more of a permanent thing. So I think in future years we'd like to take it kind of outside of this engineering sphere, this engineering side of campus, and start to build some more connections into fine arts and industrial design. And we've even thought about moving to a juried show for future years, where we have more strong thematic ties. You're able to select submissions that follow very closely into that. But then also it's the opportunity to involve people through that process from other sides of campus and through the broader Edmonton community. And then another thing we've been working with the faculty on is integrating permanent gallery space within engineering, whether that's through retrofits into parts of existing buildings, but also into some designated space potentially in ICE, which is the new infill building that's being built in engineering right now.
That's fantastic. So this year's show is called Traces. So maybe, Frazer, you could give us your thoughts on what this theme is going to try to show.
Yeah, sure. So last year was spaces, as Tyler mentioned, and kind of going with a bit of a rhyming motif. We thought, what rhymes with spaces? Came up with a big long list, and one thing that stuck out was traces. And where we've kind of gone with that and expanded on it is looking at those different lingering traces that we all leave behind in our work, in our lives, in our interactions with people and our surrounding areas. So we really wanted to explore that and see what different people interpret those traces to be when they interact with their everyday lives.
No, that sounds pretty exciting. Me being an old guy, I've got lots of those left behind, and it's going to be interesting to see what people's interpretation of this is in this year's show. Now, I understand today is the deadline for submissions,
Yeah, that's right.
and have you guys had, lots of interest this year?
Well, Terry, that engineers really like doing things right at the deadline. But up until last night, we have 29 artists that are going to be submitting things this year.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, so that's fantastic, and I expect we'll probably get a few more in today as well. And they really span a really broad range of media. We've got some multimedia works this year. Somebody that's put in some videos from a dressage competition, so with horses. We've got a few textile media. I think we've got a few interactive displays as well. I think one's like a Acts of Kindness board. There's some kind of display around that. Some sculpture works, and then of course the painting and photography, and kind of the traditional like 2D visual arts that we're going to see, including your photos, Terry.
Yeah, no, this sounds just as good as it was last year. Because last year was really very exciting to sort of walk through the engineering buildings and see all of this art.
Yeah, I think
in the corridors. It was
fantastic.
People stopping and looking and reading, and it was very exciting. And I'm really looking forward to this year's show too. So
yeah, and we've been really impressed by the caliber of submissions that we've gotten in this year as well. I think the show is really starting to have that bit of an expanding reach, kind of by word of mouth. So yeah, I'm really excited for what we're going to come up with this year.
So maybe we should just talk a little bit about the specifics of the show, and maybe give us just sort of a general idea of when the show is, where all the works are going to be displayed, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so this year, as with last year, we're linking in with National Engineering and Geosciences Month. So we're working with the Engineering Student Society and Engineers Without Borders, both groups here at the University of Alberta, who are putting on some different events, and we're collaborating to bring it all home. So National Engineering Geoscience Month is March. The show will be running from March 18th to the 28th in ETLC and NREF, two of the main buildings on campus for engineering. And it'll just kind of be, again, out in the hallways, same as last year, just to really create that immersive environment and, as Tyler was mentioning, bring that art to the everyday lives of the students who maybe are missing it or just want to interact with it a bit more strongly. We're also looking to expand on the various sort of interactive components that we'll have throughout the weeks, looking at doing a couple of different workshops, having a presentation by a local architectural firm about the concept of creating different environments in engineering work, but also in architecture and art, and a workshop on poetry, actually, be hosted by a civil engineer in town, which is really exciting. I'm very curious to see what comes out of that, and a couple more that we have in the works, so you have to watch the website to see what happens.
Well, it's kind of neat to hear all of these things that are also starting to happen beyond the art.
Yeah.
To get people involved more and really giving them a chance to enjoy the expression of all of these engineers.
Yeah, and that's really something we're looking at this year, is kind of moving from just the spectacle of viewing the works, but to actually engaging in a very physical or embodied sense with creating art and kind of participating in this sphere as well. So that's what a lot of these workshops are trying to do.
Listen to you guys talking about art. This is awesome.
Yeah, we didn't take a course on this in undergrad, so just had to figure it out. We also have a closing reception, which is happening on March 28th. The location is still a bit up in the air, but there will be more information on the website as soon as that's confirmed. It's really exciting. We talked a lot about sort of the two-dimensional visual art pieces, but we're looking to have a lot more performance art again this year. So still to be confirmed, but currently looking at some improv show, poets, a circus performance, and maybe some live music. So pretty diverse, and all of this coming from engineering students, professors, professionals. So it's really cool to be able to see that community.
That's fantastic. Now, one thing you told me last year, Tyler, was the fact that you put up all this art during the day, and then you had to take all of it down.
Yeah.
just because of the security aspect. Are you going to have to do that again this year?
No.
Oh, that's good.
That was
That's
kind of
good.
one of our main goals coming into this, that we wouldn't have to do that again. So we're looking at different options for cabinets that we can lock at night and kind of put together, because of course they are kind of this embedded gallery concept where we just have these displays spread throughout very high traffic locations, the engineering building, so it's exposed to all of the walk-through traffic that you get through this part of campus, both students, faculty, and people that are coming to visit. But yeah, this year we're definitely looking at alternatives for cases that are secure, so we can just leave the pieces in them at
Yeah,
night.
because
And then
you told me about that, and it just blew my mind that you guys actually had to go through all of that.
I may not have gone to all that much class in my first year.
Now, is there a website that people can go to get
Yep.
more specific information?
Yeah, so the website is engineeringspaces.ca.
Mm-hmm.
I just spelled like it sounds. And then if you're on Twitter, you can also follow us at Traces2013.
Fantastic. Well, it's been great talking to you guys about what I'm sure is going to be an amazing art show here at the university. And I want to thank you for taking a bit of time out of your busy day to sit down and talk with us.
Yeah, thanks for coming and visiting us, Terry.
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
You have been listening to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations, a series of interviews with local photographers and those involved in the art scene. I hope you can join us for our next interview with local photographer David Waddington.